Gold. So we'll just start it off. So to begin with, I thought it best, I can give you a brief run through for anybody who's listening here. Thanks for tuning in. Matt is, for me, and most recently, it would be musician, but obviously you're on to like a whole bunch of different things. You've always been like quite creative and entrepreneurial. So it'd be better if you just fill in what is it that you're like busy up to nowadays working on?
Uh, well, not entirely busy due to the pandemic.
Sure.
I was wearing a few hats before the pandemic, which was musician and working in event technology. So audio, visual, projection, lighting, all that kind of stuff. With the pandemic and every single one of my gigs for the entire year just going belly up. Um, and I have a son. It was a matter of just daddy daycare and renovations around here until finally he got back to daycare. Once he went back to daycare, I got into online events. So supporting online conferences, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, and I've been dabbling with some software development, mainly just websites for people and for myself, and that's what I'm doing right now. So yeah, online event technology is what's filling my day. So had a couple days on a conference this week, one the week before, a little something next week. That's pretty much it. But there's not a ton of there's not a ton, like I was pretty busy in the fall, but January's been a little bit slower. And obviously, music is we're all just waiting till we can even get into a room to practice with each other at this point.
Right, right,
Yeah.
totally. So actually, so it'd be this, I think it's kind of cool in contrast. So when things are ideal, when you're not dealing with a worldwide pandemic, when it doesn't have that situation presented to you, you were, I guess it's promotion would be wrong, right? It's not the promotion of the event that you're working with. It's the actual, like, it's the show itself. Is that correct? Can you?
Yeah, I'm working on the execution. So whether it's yeah, from a technical standpoint. So whatever your event, it would be, you want to have people show up and then people are going to expect some form of entertainment or somebody's going to be talking to them and it needs to sound good, it needs to look good, and it needs to be technically flawless. So that's what I do. And then I'll also sometimes people want to do shows across in different cities. So, and they need to have some sort of level of continuity. So they'll hire someone like me that can produce a show from coast to coast in rooms that I haven't stepped in just by reaching out to the appropriate people at the venue and making sure we're all good from a floor plan and just sort of you have to your planning has to be tight going into a setup, that kind of thing.
So you'll be working with, whether it doesn't have to necessarily be a band, but it's like you're working with someone consistently across the country then, like through multiple different venues?
Well, there'll be like, for example, I would do like a tour, whether it's a software company or like a
Mm-hmm.
financial services company that is trying to say, hey, we want to reach out to all of our financial advisors and tell them all about our new products. And we want to have, we're going to have all of our portfolio managers come and give the same presentation in 10 different cities. Let's go. And of course, things change just based on how many people they have attending, what kind of venue they were able to secure, because obviously they're different. And I'll be working with the technology providers. Typically, they might hire like an audiovisual company that's large enough to do this kind of thing, and then the audiovisual company will hire someone like me to go in and do it. And yeah, so that's kind of, or it might be a user conference for something like a software company where they want to bring all their users in and they want to update them on what's new, what they're working on. They want to get feedback so they can keep their community engaged, all that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of the technology side of stuff that I've been working on. And now it's mainly Zoom meetings and different varieties of Zoom meetings. There's so many platforms out there, Teams, Blue Jeans, whatever. There's so many of them. the nice part about that is I've been able to learn a lot in the last 8 months, and you're always doing something different with these events, because they're not just standard Zoom meetings where it's like, check out our webinar. You know, we take a Zoom meeting and then you can use an application like OBS and then into a video switching software that can, or a video switcher that also has software that runs it. And you can basically, that's how you get, you know, stuff that you see on the news where people are all, you know, multiple windows
Right,
hit,
right.
and then that will get ported into what's called an RTMP server, which then has which is where you would have a platform. And there's several different platforms out there as well that you can use to do online conferences. And they try to make them feel like a conference. You know, you show up, there's a sponsor slide happening, there's sessions, you can do networking where you can reach out, you can do individual video calls, there's people waiting, there's exhibitors that are literally just sitting there in front of their camera, kind of like a booth scenario at a conference where you want to go up and you want to get some information on a particular company and you want to talk to somebody who works there, that kind of thing.
Right, right, right. That man, that's fascinating stuff. The actual control of like the different people, say like you say, it's almost like a booth scenario. Is the control of who is available, is that being handled live? Like is that being manipulated through the course of the conference? Like these people will be up here for a panel for this period and then these people here, or is it like you would go like a preset, I don't even know what to call it, like a preset layout for like who's presented on the screen, or is the way in which people are presented changing as you go through the presentation?
Yeah, we have to get that all set up in advance. So let's just say you've got a day with, let's say you've got an hour one-on-one, you know, with two people, an interviewer and an interviewee. And then after that, you've got a video that you want to play, and then you've got a 5-person panel that you want to do, and then you've got a Q&A session after that,
Right.
okay, for another 30 minutes. What's going to happen is we're going to have a Zoom meeting, and that Zoom meeting is, we've got people scheduled to join, and we have it set so when they join, you know, they're muted, and they can't, and they're all told to make sure you're muted when you come in, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then and then what we do is that Zoom meeting is actually, we also have several computers, sometimes 6 computers, all joined into that Zoom meeting as well. And then you can just basically pin the individual people on each computer.
Okay.
And we take the video source from those computers and stick them into the video switcher, which now enables us to move things around, put a nice background behind them, all, you know, lower thirds, like people's names and titles and stuff like that.
Right, right.
That's how all that stuff gets done. So essentially it's just its own dedicated computer with somebody pinned on it. So that way it looks like Dave on the, just as a full screen, but really we're all just in a Zoom meeting, and everyone else that isn't pinned isn't on the particular screen. And then I'll communicate with the screen switcher person. Okay, let's have these particular screen states. Okay, well, now we're going to go to the 4-pip, which is that panel, and I have Dave on 1, Matt on 2, Tasha on 3, you know, Chris on 4,
Right.
and away we go. And that's kind of how we bounce around. And then if people, yeah, and so that's essentially, and then they might, how they take questions is again something that just changes almost every single event. So
Isn't it fascinating? I mean, it almost seems like you know, the cliche thing is to say like humans are adaptable, but it really is fascinating with the pandemic just how many examples of that kind of stuff that you see. I mean, it touches, I think probably, you know, who has had to have been most adaptable, of course, is probably though people like yourself in your vocation, where it's a necessity of your job to have like live performances or presentations. So who is going to have to adapt the most in the first place? It's people who are putting on live presentations, right? But it's just remarkable to me to see like how quickly that ushers things along in a way, because I'm sure, or correct me if I'm wrong, this would be another thing I can just pitch to you, is like is like you said, you're kind of learning along the way. Like how much of this feels like a sort of pioneering thing to you? Like how much of this is completely original? Like people haven't done this, right? Like this is new, is it not?
There was definitely people that were doing this, and that's definitely their sales pitch, is that they've
Okay.
been doing it a long time before the pandemic, and this is why you should hire us because we already have a lot of experience doing it.
Okay.
There is some validity to that, but now the audience is a bit more receptive to doing this kind of thing, and people are a lot more adept at using their camera on their laptop
Mm.
and and get into it. So everyone has had to make a pivot, our industry as well, and it's been, it's been good. I think that people have taken to it. It's is it going to stick around after the pandemic is over? In some form. I don't think I think for a lot of reasons, as you said, certain people have to meet. There's certain meetings that just have to continue
Mm-hmm.
forward. A lot of them medical. There's a lot of medical meetings that people just need to talk about data, talk about advisory boards on the safety of new drugs that they're working on. This is life saving stuff. They need to meet. They need to talk.
Right.
So doctors get on and people from medical companies get on and need to talk. Other things that people have to do, AGMs, they have shareholders. They have to still communicate. They still have to say, hey, we're making an effort to communicate with our shareholders. So that's something that still has to go forward. Union meetings, all that stuff has to go forward still. The only thing that really kind of gets the back seat at this point is entertainment.
Hmm.
Um, I'm in a band that does all 90s hip hop and R&B, and the whole allure of what we do is it's a fun throwback sweaty dance party.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? That's not happening when you have people in front of their computers. So we've been asked to, perform live holiday parties, or sorry, online holiday parties and stuff like that. But we just know that it's not going to land.
Right,
And
right,
it ends up,
right.
it would be a lot more effort as well, just because you spend all this money getting your tech together and getting and rehearsing and all that kind of stuff. And of course, just rehearsing for us is a huge challenge. I've got a kid in daycare. Our guitarist has two kids that are, they were in school, but that just opens up so many other bubbles.
Mm-hmm.
Our singer is doing IT at Sick Kids. Our drummer's single, so he's probably mingling a little bit.
Mm.
It's been a long time in the pandemics, but I mean, I know he's safe and all, but it's just, again, all these bubbles that how can you possibly get the four of us into
Mm-hmm.
a room together? And then it requires singing. And singing is also like one of the most dangerous things you can do during this pandemic. So
Yeah.
we haven't even been able to entertain doing the online event side of things. We feel we're just gonna sit back, focus on surviving right now, and once we're able to do a show properly, um, then we absolutely will. So.
I feel like, and I mean, now this is just going on like other tangents too. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts about this in kind of a historical context. There's all that everyone will have had to have endured through the course of this, but I really feel, especially now that it's kind of sunk in, much as there's some relief coming now and they're rolling out vaccines and there's stuff like that. The reality is that it could well, not possibly, I mean, it seems very, very likely that it could extend easily to another year. You could see like the arrival of 2022, and even at that point, much as I'm hoping ideally we'll see numbers come down in a really, really significant way, but who knows exactly how many, and to expect that things would have complete normalcy at that point would not be it. But when we come out the other side of this, I think you'll see like probably in our lifetimes, one of the most incredible examples of like a shared consciousness, in the way that there will be like such revelry when you talk about, like the baby boomers happen because of this sort of like, there's no more war, we can have as many kids as we want, we can go out and party. Like I would expect for you guys, like, man, people will want to, when it kicks off and people feel like they've beat this, I think the worldwide celebration will be something like, you have those famous pictures of like the war of like the guy who's like kissing the girl like in black and white after he's gotten off whatever navy boat or whatever. Obviously this isn't like a 6-year war that people have been through, but just the sort of trauma that is people have not been able to pursue their dreams to be social in the ways like I think you'll see. I mean, I'm optimistic for a rebound, that it will not be a climate that people are just simply interested. They'll be dying to be going to these kind of things.
Absolutely. We've had to ration our socializing for quite some time at this point, and
Right.
it's really something that we all want.
Mm.
We all really want to have the ability to socialize with people, have people in our homes, eat together,
Mm-hmm.
go out to dinner, all that kind of stuff. So we've had to sacrifice that much. I mean, it's a pretty uh, fair sacrifice for this generation based on
Yeah,
what other generations have
that's a good
sacrificed. That's
point.
for sure.
Definitely.
Um, yeah, I think that it's our duty to go get vaccinated. It's a I think that people should really step forward and say, yes, I'm doing this for the good of my country and fellow man and well-being of everyone around me, that kind of thing.
Of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So step forward and do it. You haven't had to sacrifice this much in this generation. Step forward, roll your sleeve up, do it. And yeah, so
Yeah. No, I think that's another good point too. Just in comparison of sacrifices, it really is remarkable to me. I mean, of course, we're exposed to more melodrama because we were exposed to the internet. So, like, opinions that probably within their social circle or even ones that people wouldn't listen to before, every opinion is magnified by the nth degree or whatever. But it does make me laugh when I see, obviously there's some trauma and it's frustrating, and especially somebody like yourself where your vocation is wrapped up in this, that it's really a challenge. But a lot of people who don't have that, like, they can work remotely, they can't party as much, and it feels like their life's great war. Where I think you make a great point that conversely, I would rather this than whatever the previous generations were, whether it was a first, a second world war, or whatever else, the
yeah.
fear
You
of
want to get
nuclear
told to stay home
holocaust.
for a year? Yeah. Do you want to be told to stay at home for a year, or do you want to get drafted?
Drafted.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, totally.
or
Yeah,
do you want, or one of your loved ones gets conscripted to war?
yeah.
Yeah, it's it's a sacrifice we should all be willing to make at this point. Is just be conscious of this. Let's get the numbers down. Thankfully, they are dropping right now in Canada,
Yeah,
and
I've heard that.
I hope we can get our vaccines in order. I mean, I think every country is pointing the finger at each other, saying, "Look at them, they're getting
Yeah.
more, or they're doing a better job, and we're botching it." Everyone's just saying we're all botching it and whatnot. But I think it's they're they're doing what they can, and hopefully we'll. I'm just counting down the days to April, really, just because that's when we have some warmer weather here and start being able to use the backyard, stuff like that. I'll get
That's
to ride
nice.
my bike more. Yeah,
When you say your bike, what kind of bike? A bicycle? A motorbike?
bicycle. Yeah,
A
yeah. I got a
bicycle.
couple. Yeah, I got my solo whip, and then
Nice.
I have my dad bike, which has a seat for my son on the back, so will
Okay, cool.
allows us to cruise around.
Are you guys deep in the winter right now? Is there a lot of snow?
We just had a good snowfall Tuesday this week. So, yeah, we had a good 10, 15 centimeters. So now it looks like winter around here. It already was cold, but now it's -10 and there's
Okay.
snow around. So, it does finally look like it. But January was pretty easy up until then. Like there wasn't even any snow since Christmas.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Was it worryingly warm? Like global warming warm?
you know, Mm, believe me, I believe in global warming, and I'm certainly not an advocate for
Yeah.
warming the planet. But I've always said I'm against global warming, but I will reap the benefits of some warmer temperatures in the city while it's around. Right? Only because
Yeah.
in the city with streets and cycling, because I like to cycle. You can't cycle if the roads are slush and cold. But if there's no snow and the roads are dry, then I'm out there on a bike. You just get some merino wool long johns and away you go.
Yeah, man. I feel that too. I like just the other day I was out and to me it was feeling, suspiciously warm, kind of almost like spring weather where I was walking around, but where I'm against the global warming, I definitely wasn't against it on that day. I don't mind when it lets up just occasionally during winter to give you that
Yeah,
brief
yeah,
moment.
exactly.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah, we get our small reprieve every now and then, but of course, the natural disasters are what's really the hard pill to swallow. With just saying, hey, can you deny this? We're having so many more disasters as far as forest fires and earthquakes and all that kind of stuff. So
Oh yeah, 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 sure. I mean, forest fires, earthquakes, like the number of hurricanes that they have, like all of it, like every, and I mean, it's also like it's also the intensity of them, right? As I understand, like the intensity of these things has increased as well. It's is freaky stuff. And so wild when you think. I mean, I'm sure it was just the same for you. Whenever the fact that it was talked about so thoroughly when I was like 17, that when I was 17 listening to like scientists in my like uni that were like, this is really bad. And then, a decade later, I'm like, did we do nothing? Or, not to, throw it off or say it's all my responsibility, but I'm like, wow, we really kicked that can down the road for a long
oh
time.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you watched the most recent Attenborough documentary?
I would I think I have actually. Is it the one that like has the human population and it keeps showing the population going up with like the number
Versus
of
the
the
wild
forest?
spaces? Yes.
Yeah, I mean it was
Yeah.
definitely where he's usually so measured because you can tell he's trying to not freak people out and it's about the beauty of the world. That's the most I've seen him just speak more frankly about like what the problem is. I mean, they have one shot that's incredibly powerful. It's like I got to be careful I talk about it. I'm going to get all choked up here, but like it shows him and they ask him like what do you think the ultimate consequences are or whatever of this, and he actually, the way that it was edited was brilliant because he takes a moment and you can see like the emotional impact on him. He gets like choked up. He doesn't know exactly how to articulate what he's going to say, and it's like it's beautifully sad. You can see like just the real heart that this guy has for it. And then I was, oh man, how sharp he is. He's like in his 90s, right? Isn't he in
Yeah.
his,
Yeah. Yeah. He is.
oh
Yeah.
man, it to
Yeah.
me, yeah, it was like a novel where it was like
Mhm.
he's one of the ancients, he's trying to warn you, like he's seen it for save your world. It's really, it's a
Yeah.
bit on the nose, but it's real, yeah.
I always love the George Carlin line though, when he's like, "Oh, save the world, save the planet." He's like, "The planet's going to be fine,
Sure.
right?"
Yeah, yeah, it'll
Like,
just be,
what you really mean is save us,
yeah.
and that's absolutely true. I mean, planet's going to be fine. And Carlin goes on to say, maybe all the Earth ever wanted was plastic,
Yeah.
and we were just a mutation along the way. Just give it what it wanted, and now
Yes.
we can go. So, so we've made our share of plastic, and that the one thing that I try to highlight to everyone that has seen that documentary as well, only because I've been practicing it for I don't know, maybe getting close to 20 years now, is eating meat. I'm not someone that is gonna say you're a bad person for eating meat, but eating less meat should be something that everyone should be conscious of right now. There's just not enough land and resources to support 7 billion meat eaters, right? He goes into say in the natural world, there's, a carnivore for every 100 animals, right?
Yeah.
So it's just one of these things where it's not sustainable for us to eat it 2, 3 times a day. It should be treated more as a delicacy, and if you eat and more rarely, right? So
Yeah, man.
that's something that I see in that, and I go, yeah, I really hope so. My parents, they eat meat consistently, and we have the conversation every now and then because we watch that documentary together. Um, but yeah, it's just a matter of trying to get a couple more meatless meals in per week to just sort of do your part.
And it's fantastically practical on so many levels. Like, I'd say probably the number one culprit for people and their dietary issues is usually carbs. That's the first place, but like most of our diet is not always exactly what we're eating, but just the pure caloric excess. And what do people like to excess on is usually meat, carbs, and sweets. And it's funny. It's because it'd be like doing yourself a favor if you were to eat less of this. Then you'd see such a boon for whole healthcare. I mean, like not to speak Canada necessarily. Canada's got its own problems, but probably one of the greatest burdens on the American healthcare system, and I know on the UK healthcare system as well, because of the obesity rates there. Just billions and billions of dollars that are spent and, frankly, wasted in the economy solving issues that are health related to weight. Where if people were to address this, they'd have a healthier country, they'd have a healthier economy, and they'd have a world to live on at the end of it. It's so pragmatic for I was every part of human existence. And the point, I mean, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but like a major point there again is as well is that it's not even saying become a vegan. It's just saying don't so constantly consume meat. Um, and as well, like I believe it also matters the type too, right? Because it's like the amount of land needed for example, red meat also takes up an even more significant area. Is that correct? I believe that's correct.
I would buy that. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
buy that.
So it's just like subtle little things, but yeah, absolutely would can make such a huge difference. And I mean, where I think people are so moved, well, people are, and I mean, it sounds wrong, but it's like people are first and foremost selfish. But I think what selfish, maybe what I might better say is, it's self-interested, which comes from survival. But then because our society has solved so many of these problems for most people living in a third world country, we still have a sort of survival instinct, but all those instincts in the way that we're currently supported run into excess. And so you need to think about like curbing your desire to survive, because it's no longer meeting needs, it's just overshooting every single one of them that we have. uh,
Mm-hmm.
but then, the side effect just so happens to be that you don't need however many thousands of acres of farmland, and then you don't have all these cows farting all the time. That's like, even that.
Yeah,
um, and then just generally how much healthier you are because of that.
yeah.
It's a good
Your
point.
longevity is definitely tied to your diet. There's lots of studies. I forget who wrote the original piece on blue zones. You heard
Okay.
of the blue zone?
No, no, no. What's the blue zone?
They're the pockets in the world where people live the longest.
Ah, okay, interesting.
People that are going to live over 100 type of thing. So
Hmm.
definitely spoken to your father about going past 100, all that kind of stuff. And actually, one of the blue zones is in Japan, Okinawa.
Oh, right, right, right.
Yeah, and they took a look at all these zones where people are living that long and sort of what similarities they have. One of them, a couple that you mentioned, that you touched on here is not eating to excess. A lot of them eat until they're 80, they say 80% full. They don't stuff themselves.
Mm-hmm.
More of a grazing, kind of more frequent snacks, not really gorging on one meal type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then another one is mainly vegetarian diet. Lots of beans, tofu, stuff like that, bean-based stuff. Your legumes really are quite healthy for you in terms of fiber and antioxidants, stuff like that. So yeah, and then they had other things like social communities,
Yeah.
bridge clubs, playing music together, even up into old age. And also, a lot of them did their own gardening.
Mm.
When you're in small communities, you do your own gardening, which is good physical exercise, and of course, gives you great food. And they would even live in houses with stairs, stuff like that too, that you wouldn't expect for people that are over 90. And
Yeah,
that, of
that's
course,
interesting.
um, helps drive your physicality. I think once you, yeah, to keep you healthy. So a bunch of those things that were overlapping as well. So yeah, stuff like that.
That's a great, really interesting point. This is something I talk about less. It doesn't come up as often now because I don't see it as much. But you're talking about community and how important that is. This is like a whole. It's like a new thing. I feel like it's addressed better in Japan. Just collectivism is going to collectivist. They're going to do that kind of thing. So community is a little more deeper rooted. But I saw, for example, the old gym that I used to go to, gone to a couple. It had a one of these. I guess you would call it like it almost looks like a gym room, but it's like if you wanted to do classes, you could do classes in this room. And one of the things I noticed there was that the majority of the classes, it wasn't younger people who were attending them, it was older people. And I was just like, that's just something. If I've ever, like, say I go to Vancouver and I go to the Y there and I go to classes, there's just no old people. And I
Right.
feel like Japanese people don't do it as much because they love working out, but they so love community that they end up working out if there's a space for them to do that as a community. Where I really do wish for people who've grown older in the West that there was more support to be active, because they're just like,
Where
again,
you are, or in the West?
in the West. I wish in
Okay.
the West that there was more encouragement for elderly people or people at all ages, like that going to the gym or being physically active was not seen as like, young jack dude or like, Instagram model girl got to be at the gym. That sort of lifestyle was something that people sought out more because it's got all the overlapping effects, right? Naturally, you're doing something that's good and healthy for you, but when you're there and you're there with a bunch of people, then you're given this reason to live, this community that's going to sustain you. Where there was just something, a marked difference, I thought, in the number of active old people that I've seen in Japan as compared to what I saw in the West. And I thought, like, when I think of older people in the West, unless they're really driven, like, there's also what you might sometimes find in the West is like an older person who is being active during their life but as an individual, and so they've just been active when they're older but as an individual. But I was like, I don't see as much of the people in the West who are active but are active in a group. Like, how many like elderly soccer teams do you see, or like elderly the hyper, what is the frisbee game called, do you know?
So,
Yeah,
ultimate.
ultimate frisbee. Like, I
Okay.
feel like that would really, I think it would just be a fantastic thing. Like, I had my
Well,
mom.
I think they're in the water. They're doing the old. They're doing all the water workout stuff. They're doing the swimming. All,
Okay,
all, all of the smooth, low impact sports. That's what happens. Just because the joints get, you start wearing on the joints, right?
that's true. I suppose ultimate frisbee might be in the high impact category that you could no longer
Yeah.
get involved with. Can't do that. All right, so maybe that's
My,
not the
my,
one you
my
want to do.
brother and I, we both got VR headsets,
Which ones? What did you get?
Quest 2.
Oh yeah. All right.
Do you have one?
I don't have one. I want one.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah, you gotta get one, man. You
Okay.
gotta get one. Yeah. So my dad has one as well. Um, we've been playing mini golf, and Scott and I were doing this cooking game last night, which was super fun. You guys trying to make sandwiches and all this kind of stuff. You're like, give me that lettuce, grill that tomato, and like,
That's
it's pretty
awesome.
hilarious. Yeah. Um, but where I was going with it is there's also a zero G ultimate frisbee style game as well, where
Okay.
you're flying around. It's like a futuristic rollerball type of game, and you can punch your opponents in the face, and they can punch you. But of course, you can try and if you block the punch right before they do it, then they get stunned. And of course, there's a disc, and you're trying to grab the disc and throw it to each other and get it into the target. That they have it either end of the field, and
And is it a three-dimensional field? Like, can you be upside down, or is it like is there an up and a down, or is it like,
it's definitely three dimensional,
or is it
but they keep you. Um, let's just say let's just say you're always held in a certain up and down fashion.
okay, okay,
Of
okay,
course,
gotcha.
of course, you can go up, you can go down, you can look 360, you can turn around, you can twist all that kind of stuff, but really, you're always righted to
Okay, okay.
to this. It's too. The game's already discombobulating.
Yeah, 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 makes sense.
So
Yes.
if they give you some sort of, just think of it as your head floating around with a weight
Right,
holding the bottom, right? So you still have some level. So you're not going to get totally barrel rolled in this thing,
right.
but you are flying around when you're not actually moving all that much
Yep.
in your own living room, which at first can be nauseating, and then you can adjust your settings and get more comfortable with it. So
And it's a huge thing, right? I mean, I know that, and I've only had the smallest experiences with VR, but the whole the motion sickness element is massive. I think that's like a huge consideration they have to have is that it has the power, if they did let you go wild, to make somebody like motion sick in a heartbeat if they go too crazy.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, well, I've been doing it for a few weeks now, and there's certain games that most of the games actually have done a very good job of being conscious of it, so that you don't get motion sickness.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of teleporting in them,
Oh,
and
okay,
but
yeah.
and when you move around by teleporting, you don't really get sick. It's the movement of the screen
Mm,
and the ground underneath you while you're not moving
right.
that kind of makes you feel sick. But there's also another one that I saw where they do vignetting while you're moving around. You know
Mm-hmm.
what that is?
No, I mean, I know a vignette, but not in the sense of this
Yeah.
context.
So you see the entire screen, and then when you move around, a vignette closes in. So it's a little bit more
Oh,
tunnel
okay.
vision
I
as you're
see.
moving.
Okay.
So as you're moving, they give you this tunnel vision, and of course you can adjust the size of the vignette if you're going, hey, you know what, I'm not feeling sick at all, and I want to see a little bit more while I play it. You can pull
All
the
right.
vignette back. Oh, I'm feeling a little bit queasy, and then you can close it right in. They recommend you start the vignette at max, just so you don't get sick at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't got sick at all, and now I'm wondering whether I can scale the vignette back a little bit, just because I haven't felt sick at all playing the game.
Right, right, right.
So, and then yeah, the other huge advantage of it, one of the main reasons that motivated us to get it was when we tried it over the holidays, because we bubbled up with my parents, was cardio, was the workout. We're
Mm,
both stuck inside the house, and you can really work up a sweat on one of these things. You
that's
can set
cool.
calorie targets that you want to do each day. I'm definitely going to be doing a workout today.
Nice.
Um, yeah, it'll show you what you do. Some games obviously aren't a great workout, but there's certain games that you will be, you better wear some shorts.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
when you're gonna go into VR. There's a boxing game, and Beat Saber is huge as well. So yeah, it's and then the multiplayer side of Beat Saber is great too. You're just in lobbies, and you're waving to people, and then you're just slicing and dicing in there, and yeah, getting a good sweat on.
it's so I mean, one thing, right, that I mean, you know it, you've done it a bit, and I feel like you got to be careful of the curse of knowledge. It always feels like as soon as you've experienced something, it's very easy to feel like far more people have because you have. And then that kind of extends it, your experience extends to the world where you're like, if I've listened to this song, well, then probably tons of people have. But actually, the market of people using VR is still it's still very you know, whatever, first adopters, you could still call it, kind of thing. And there's just something so special about the presence, you know, that word they like to use, right? Presence. And I've so noticed, like, all I gotten, because I'm like the most obsessed person with VR who has had so little actual time with it. Like when I was interested, I got the Samsung Gear. You know, you could get that for like the
Mhm.
Samsung phones.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the first one I had, like I read afterwards, they were like, it's good, but the issue is that the phone overheats. You know, this is the sort of thing I was like dealing with. But one of the first things I used with that was just the social app. And there was something where it's like, I've been in a million chat rooms, I played a million online games, but there's something so different and profound about the experience when you're in a VR room and the people are there with you. The sense of the chat room is a totally different place when you have presenced avatars surrounding you. Like it's almost another incredible thing about the human brain that it just doesn't care. It doesn't care that it is fully aware how artificial that is, yet at the same
Mhm.
time, so treats it as real. Like
Yeah.
there's a part of yourself that when you're in one of those rooms and you look over at what somebody's other avatar, that looks at the avatar as though you would a person who is standing next to you. Of course, you're totally aware that they are not, but there is a part of your brain that is bought in 100%, and it's just
Yeah.
the most wild thing. It's fascinating, you know.
The avatars the avatars have a ways to go at this point. The avatars are very, very basic.
Yeah.
The graphics are certainly getting a heck of a lot better. I think ideally you take a selfie of yourself and it makes an avatar for you. That would
Mm.
be ideal. And then of course, you know, they could just say, "Oh, I'm picking up some audio from the microphone. Let's just move the mouth." At this point, there's no way that they're going to stick a camera to find out exactly what you're doing with your mouth. Um, but there's certain things that you could do to sort of that I'm anticipating will soon happen in that world. And I tell you, we've partied on Saturday nights on VR. Like the mini golf is a total blast.
That's
There,
awesome.
there's three of us hanging out. We're chatting. The chat works really well. And for the mini golf, you only need one controller because you kind of hold it like a putter, you
Oh,
know.
okay.
Like,
Yeah, yeah,
like-
yeah.
so on the other hand, you got a drink, and then we just totally do
And
18 holes, and then then Tash will take the next round, kind of thing. So
do you see them as avatars like around you, or are they like
it's
they're
just they're just gray heads with, with colored visors on.
Okay, okay.
So, you know, you're just a head with a visor. So you don't get to see any sort of facial expression, but you get audio and you still get to see what their head is doing. So when
Yeah.
somebody misses a shot and you see them do this, they go, ah.
And
You
right,
still,
and it's conveyed. You get it. Yeah.
you still see the head, or you know, they miss a shot and then you see the head do this. And then the head just drops in disappointment. You know, you still get to experience those things, which are pretty funny.
and and
Um,
and isn't that fascinating, like a statement of you learn so many things by stripping away layers. Of course we're going to try and add them back, but it just shows you how in tune body language is,
yeah,
that these subtle emotions can convey so much information to us, that they're so like you say, it's so entertaining, it's so powerful, that it's just like something like that, or like, oh man, you know exactly what they're thinking with that little movement is that's awesome. That's so interesting.
yeah. So you should get one actually, and you should definitely. I looked at the other models that are out there right now, and nothing is touching the Quest 2 in my opinion. Lightest, some of the largest resolution. You get the best of both worlds because you can still use the cable and get the Rift library. So my brother's got that for my
Right.
brother's birthday. Got him the cable, so now he can play some of the really high end VR games because he's got a gaming laptop,
Right.
and you can get into things like Half Life Alyx and whatnot. And
Mhm.
of course, it's still standalone, which means you get the benefit of VR that's untethered, and it's really affordable. The model is like 459 Canadian. Um, that's tax and shipping. And I mean, I sold my dad's Oculus Go for $200 last October, and that thing was 2 years old. So you could definitely buy this, play it for 2 years, and I guarantee you're going to get $200 for it in 2 years.
It really does seem to, like, it's been interesting to see the different benchmarks. It's been fascinating, the march of the technology in terms of resolution, weight, comfort, but definitely the Quest 2 does seem like one of the real benchmarks that's come along, where it's like, oh, this is a big change when you look especially across time,
Mhm.
how
Yeah.
far they've come. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, they don't have the social side, the party aspect of it worked out very well. They have to make some improvements there. I heard that they're bringing Messenger into it. It's owned by Facebook. It would make sense to have full on Messenger in there so you can do calls, do group chats, and then create parties. Because yeah, I've been seeing issues where you get into a game, you have a party already, you get into a game, and then nobody's mic works because apparently the application that you're running and the native party app on Oculus, I guess, are competing for microphone permissions.
Okay.
That's my assumption. So it's not flawless. Still does feel a little bit early
Mm.
adopting type of world right now. But like I said, they've still come a heck of a long ways, and it's a great device. So
That's cool. That's cool.
hey, I don't know how if you. I wanted to ask you about you. I know we were doing a little chat here, but what's going on in Japan? What's keeping you busy these days? I know you have the show.
The Probably well, absolutely the biggest, most significant thing recently was where I've taught for this. As of April, it would have been 8 years that I'm teaching here. But I had a supporter about maybe 7 months now ago sent me a message and said, "Hey, there's this channel. It's called Wow to You, only in Japan, and they're looking for a new host." I was like, "Okay, sounds interesting." Uh, I pursued that, and long story short, yeah, to make a real long story short, after all, they wanted like video submissions, they wanted to talk, so on and so forth. I got the position as their new MC for their channel. So my plan with them was, look, I've always been interested to move to Kyoto because I got a friend there who has he's not a big, he's got a startup, and I would like to help him. And I was gonna, like, hell or high tide, I was gonna go and try and help him. It was gonna be super tight, but I was like, I'll help him, and with some savings, I'm just gonna try and go full time, at least for a year, on my own creative stuff. Really try and dedicate the time that it takes to make my channel flourish. Uh, but since I got accepted for this MC thing, I said, how about this? I'll be your MC, but you guys contract me, uh, possibly through them. So that was the thought, and that means that as of April, I'm currently working at a school now, which is like a private school. It's been a trip, I'll tell you. Like this private school where I was before, they always consider you like an assistant language teacher. At this private school, they sponsored my license, and I became a full teacher. And I've been teaching, like, teaching by myself, all my own classes. And they even got something really cool here. There's a real emphasis at the school on English. They have many students who have lived abroad. And so I've had one class, there's like an advanced class for each grade. They gave me the first year advanced class, so the kids who had just come to the school and that were advanced. And a couple of them had actually lived in Vancouver. So it was also my first experience teaching kids who were bilingual. So that was a trip. And it's been really cool. But where I respect the job, it's cool. This was not my passion. I want to create, I want to make art, I want to make documentaries and this kind of stuff. And so now, working with Wow to You, only in Japan, that's the name of the channel, I'll make a couple of videos for them a month. That's going to give me the ability to pay the bills, to pay my rent, but then also free me to be able to work on my own stuff, kind of parallel to that. So that's the big thing, and that's happening in April, and I'll move to Kyoto in April.
Okay. Wow. Awesome.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's so exciting. I and it's cool too because it's like all these different moving pieces. It's this kind of, I feel like, not, I never want to serve people platitudes, because a lot of life is more the fact that you persevere past frustration and failure. But I cannot ignore that this, so many of the moving pieces in this were because I just kept doing the thing, doing the thing, doing the thing, until it kind of came together. One of the things was, like, of my submissions that I made to them, it was one of these videos that I poured, like, a lot of time into, and then when the views for it came, they were not so good. I mean, for a video in comparison, like, had a larger channel maybe released it, what they would get. But then when I submitted that as my reference for them, they were like, man, that video was great. We loved it. And so it felt like a vindication, for the past effort that didn't go so well. Um, and I love Drew. Drew's like a friend of, like, decades. I knew him when I was in grade one.
oh, wow.
So yeah, so to be like
This is your
moving
friend,
out,
this is your friend in Kyoto?
that's right, that's right.
Okay.
So to be like moving, like, we've always hung out, like, back and forth when he's, like, closer to me, or I'm, closer to him. But now that we'll kind of be like, I'll be doing my Wow to You while he works on his business there. It's just, you know, nothing is just flying at this moment. It's all going to be, like, very hard work and down to, grinding, but something that I want to grind on. So I'm really, really, really excited for.
Cool. Nice.
Yeah,
That's
that's
awesome, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the jam right now. Although it's kind of in a final push. This school has something that I've had to do at this school, because I'm a teacher, so I got to do the teacher stuff. Is they have term tests, like you would at any
Yeah.
school. And so before I leave, where I would usually write one of these, it's just so come around that for this term they want me to write two. So I've got, like, this final push that I have to do right now. But once I break clear of that, it's kind of being like downhill to the end of it. Um, I didn't
It almost sounded like you were doing Turing tests.
Oh yeah, to see if they're, yeah. Got to test the like Ex Machina kind of stuff, right? That
Yeah,
movie, yeah,
isn't that the AI test?
yeah,
Like,
exactly,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Um, one thing I did, which was, it was kind of like grudgingly cool today, was they have it's something called moral education, which I was like, yeah, that's kind of cool. Like, it's good to have that in schools, depending on whatever exactly the content would be. So today they wanted me to do that, and there's different grades, like grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5.
yeah.
Um, my group are the second graders. That's, although I teach every grade, or nearly, I teach grades 1, 2, and grade 5 high school.
Okay.
Um, I'm responsible for, like, events and stuff for the grade 2s, and they were like, we want you to present to the second grade class, a moral education lesson, which, it's good practice to feel more comfortable, because maybe for yourself, you're a performer, you've been up in front of crowds, but the performing that I do is behind a camera, and so there's not that same impact of all these eyes on you.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a more significant number of people to be watching, and they do it in, like, the auditorium, and the whole class is there. But I did a presentation on the evolution of messaging, and so I was going back, I was talking about, like, smoke signals leading to to carrier pigeons, to telegrams, to the cell phones, to Miami Vice, to, like,
Yeah, that sounds fun.
yeah. And it was cool, because I was like, I got to roll it into this idea of like I eventually ended up on Neuralink because I was saying, this is something that's going to like lead to speechless communication, which I was really quite surprised that none of the students knew, and I was like, sure, they're kids, they're in Japan, they probably don't know the foremost creative people over in the West, who those might be. But I was surprised. I asked one of the teachers, I was like, you know who he is, right? And they're like, I don't know. I was like, oh, come on.
Who's that? Sorry.
Elon Musk.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was like, come on, you gotta know Elon, but whatever. And I got to roll it into this idea that messaging is communication, but communication is more than simply words. It's when you do anything, you communicate. That's what I was trying to make the point of, is that like when you learn something, the way in which you learn is communicating something to your teacher. Uh,
Hmm.
when you create art, that's a form of communication. That's like it's telling somebody something, whenever they interact with it. And then how that relates to when you are online nowadays, you create an online persona, and that persona for a lot of people will be more of their experience of you than the physical you. So then to realize how important or significant it is that you treat your online persona with respect, that you're, like the classic things are written in stone on the internet, just this education that I feel kids just need to protect themselves at the very least, beyond,
Hmm.
the more beautiful expression of what it can be. And granted, I mean, all of this, it's like a TED talk to people who are listening in a second language for them, so I'm like trying to keep the language, down there, because that's the first thing I felt for the kids when they were like, Dave, we want you to give, a 45-minute presentation. I was like, I can't do that all in Japanese, and these kids are just gonna be like, like Charlie Brown, like Elon Musk, like
Yeah.
what is he saying?
Right.
But it was fun. It was fun, and it's the last one I'll have to do, so that was, just another like checkbox. So that was cool. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Hey, what's a Miami Vice?
Oh, it was referring to, it's the Miami Vice, being that the cell phones they used in those were like the huge Motorola bricks that were like
Oh,
two
okay. Okay. Okay.
kilograms.
I thought it was a communication device that I was like, what's a Miami Vice? I mean, I know the show,
Right.
but I didn't so
Yes. No, it was
yeah.
a crazy thing, and it's also good for me to like set myself into relation of their experience, where I ask the kids, who among you has ever used a landline? Not a single kid.
Of
Not,
course, yeah.
and I'm like, you see, that's a different world. That's a different, that the only phone you ever knew was a smartphone is, that's wild. That is a whole new frontier.
Yeah.
Um, but then helps you understand them. It helps you get what they do know, what they don't know, what's bizarre for them. Like I say, the curse of knowledge, that like your perspective makes you blind to how differently people see, because we're like, my experience is the world experience. So I always try and think about that stuff. I'm sure you must be enjoying. Like I don't know. It can't be that long ago that you had your kid, because I saw it, probably I was late to the party to say like, oh, congratulations, you got a kid now. But like, how old is your son now?
He turned 2 in November.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So words are now starting to fly out,
All right.
and he's at a French school. I speak French with him, and so it's a bit of both,
That's cool.
depending on what he typically says the easier word, whatever that might be. So like chaise is easier for him to say than chair.
Oh, okay.
You Um, yeah, and so yeah, but he's definitely pretty good at technology. My mom had a iPad that we would let him go on for a little bit over the holidays. And there's just a toddler app where you just got to drag caterpillars and count them into a jar and just No problem. Oh, you got to cut down this little tree by tracing the lines and whatnot, and he's just crushing it. So putting the pieces together like a puzzle type of thing, but all on an iPad. I mean, it just goes to show when you see those, if you've ever seen those videos of babies and they see a magazine and they try and pinch and zoom on it, and you're like, okay,
Okay.
this is a whole new world of just them living with technology. I'm still curious whether he's ever going to have a driver's license. It's
They're great question. Great question.
14 years from now, self-driving cars. There is a heck of a lot to it's just so many variables. It's such a large task, but seeing as there's so many people working on that type of thing and getting it safe in easier climates, where they can have a cab drive around in the southern states, which doesn't have snow,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got proper roads and signs and stuff like that. That would be a much easier scenario as opposed to when you get into climates that have snow and not proper infrastructure to find where painted lines are on the road and curbs and signs and all that kind of stuff. So to be able to drive properly, and in those scenarios, like, is much more difficult. So
Totally.
still, we'll see where he gets. He loves cars. He's obsessed with all things, all vehicles at this point.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Are you
So
finding any? I mean, again, I don't have that kind of experience with kids, so I can only ask questions. Do you find is he becoming does he show any signs toward introversion or extroversion at this point?
he's independent. Like, he's quite good at keeping himself occupied. You can
Okay.
just you can give him a truck or a couple trains or something like that, and he's happy playing with it for 45 minutes. And then at that point, it's not like he comes to you and he wants your attention, where he's like, "Give me this, watch me, watch me." It's more of a um, he starts to get more destructive, and I think out of boredom.
I see.
And you're kind of like, okay, we got to get this guy outside. I need to change the environment, or I need to change floors, change to toys, do something different, eat. You know, we got to do something different. So he's, I guess, introverted in that sense, but at the same time, we wanted to get him back in daycare because there's a good social side of things there,
Mm-hmm.
and he's doing quite well. I mean, he's talking a lot. The teachers have told me that he's they were like, wow, he's speaking a lot these days. I just dropped him off this morning, and he as soon as I was pulling him out of the car seat, he was just reciting all the names of his friends. He was just going through all their names, and yeah, so it's good to get that side of it, because during the summer before daycare was back in, I remember I saw him go up and hug a tree, and I was like, oh my god, this kid is starved for some social activity here.
That's
you
hilarious.
know,
Uh,
so yeah, and he's doing decent at sharing. We were at the park on Sunday, and of course, there's just some balls that are there, and he loves balls. But when I told him, like, he picked up a ball,
mm-hmm.
and some other kid started crying. It was a park ball, it wasn't their ball. I asked the dad, I was like, is that your kid's ball? He's like, oh no. But I was like, okay, well, Atlee, give him the ball. And he was a little younger than him, so he went up and he just placed it like right at his feet. And I was like, okay, good sharing, way to go, good sharing. Of course, if it was a truck, I don't know if he would have been as good.
Yeah,
He might have been like, it's mine.
that's
And
a harder
so
sell. Yeah.
yeah, so there's no perfect child, but it's nice to see those moments. And of course, it's just natural toddler behavior to be possessive of certain items,
Sure.
prized trucks, stuff like that.
Which?
Prized trucks and
Oh
vehicles,
yes,
stuff
prized
like that.
trucks. Yeah, yeah, yeah. For sure, for sure.
Yeah,
But
so that's the latest with him. He's been doing well, and schools are still closed here. Daycare is open, so we're just kind of we're some of the few parents that can still work. Um, because we have daycare. Like I couldn't have taken the work that I've been doing this month without it, really. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Well, I can only say thank you so much for coming on, Matt. This was fantastic. I didn't. It's not. It doesn't really matter. But for the people listening, Matt, by the way, is my cousin. So that's if you see any resemblance in the video, there's shared blood there. uh,
Yes.
but yeah, thanks for coming on. And I mean, the truth of it is, I feel like were it not for the time exactly, I mean, there's so much more that we could get into that you should absolutely come on again because it'd be fantastic and give us a chance to catch up more.
Be happy to, Dave. Thanks, man. Great chatting with you.
Cheers. Thank you very much.